Hello, this is Grandmaster Ted Gambadella, and I want to ask you a question. Why is Brock Lesnar, with a record of 4-1, by far the biggest star in the MMA world? Do any of you MMA experts, and of course we're talking about you, and definitely not me, ever stop and ask yourself, why is Brock Lesnar the biggest star in MMA despite the fact that he's only had 5 fights and is 4-1? And only 2 of his fights he won by knockout. 1 by submission and 1 by decision. Shouldn't Jeremy Horn be the biggest star in MMA? He has a record of 84-19 with 54 submissions and 19 knockouts. Yet Horn does not even get to fight in the UFC anymore. And Lesnar, who has the record for the largest pay-per-view in the history of the UFC, and hasn't fought in a year, will become the biggest draw again this year in the UFC. Why is that so? Well, we asked some of the MMA experts. We found sporting tattoos and wearing MMA gear at the local health club we went to and asked them what they thought. And they should know, because they've watched hundreds of matches on TV and have been training off and on for several months, just getting ready in case they're ever asked to fight in the cage or in a local Naga tournament in the novice division. And here are some of their interesting and intelligent answers. They'll probably sound familiar to many of you other MMA expert mental fighters out there. So I asked them, why is Brock Lesnar the biggest star in MMA? Well, he's married to Sable, and she's a bitchin' hot babe. He wins every fight by knockout. He's fought all the best and never lost. He has a cool tattoo, man, and tons of muscles, just like real MMA fighters do. He kicks butt and takes names, bro. He's cool and shoots guns. Now, while all of these have some definite merit using the logical reasoning of the Squidbillies and Family Guy, they really don't have much to do on why and how Brock Lesnar became the biggest star in MMA after only 5 fights. So, I want to tell you why I think Brock Lesnar was the biggest star and is the biggest star. Brock Lesnar was already a star before he came to the MMA world. He was famous as a wrestler on the WWE and as a bad guy, and was the heavyweight champion. And despite what you want to think, most MMA fans have watched the WWE, even though they won't admit it. I do watch it. The WWE made Brock Lesnar a star, made him famous, and gave him an aura of invincibility, because Vince McMahon gave him that aura and taught him to walk, talk, and act like a superstar. He had 3 years of daily training in getting the crowds to hate him or love him, in putting on a show in and out of the ring. He built his reputation by fighting in 1,500 shows and hundreds, if not thousands of times on TV, against guys who look like real MMA fighters, but are in reality much bigger and stronger and meaner than 90% of the real MMA fighters out there. He learned to read his lines and to strut his stuff in front of the camera on a daily basis. And he learned to work the crowd and to get them hating him or loving him. The WWE relies completely on emotions in a match, before match and after match. It is the only sport or entertainment in the world that can hype a fight for a world title by having the actual people who are getting ready to fight for the title fight 4, 5, 10, 20 times before the actual fight. Each time winning and losing different ways. To build up a fight that you just watched for free 25 times. The WWE knows how to build stars and how to drive pay-per-view. Brock Lesnar was a master student, and he brought his WWE training to the UFC, where he quickly learned that the fights were not prearranged, and he got beat in his second fight by Frank Mir. Now, the only hype that the UFC has to offer any of its fighters is a poorly written and acted Ultimate Fighter TV series, where 16 guys are put into a house and given some scripted dialogue or stupid acts they're tried to do to make them a star. Most rely upon jackass type of antics or bad hair to be their primary reason to make them famous. And then the UFC hopes that they win a fight and can turn that fame that they got from tough and catapult them into stardom. This hasn't been working, and it never will make someone a real star like the superstars of the WWE. To be a superstar in boxing or MMA, you have to win a lot of fights. And no one appears to be able to do that for very long in the MMA world, like in the boxing world. In the boxing world, you have fighters like Pacquiao and Mayweather and others who have won 30 to 40 fights in a row and haven't lost in 10 years. Now think of some of the greatest MMA fighters. Most of them have not won more than 4 to 5 fights in a row, and most of them have lost 20% or more of their actual fights. You can't build an MMA stardom or make someone an MMA star by relying upon them winning fights for years and years. The sport is too hard and too brutal to make a star from someone winning fights. So what can the MMA world do to make the next star like Brock Lesnar? TV. And weekly TV. Do a new series on the fighters and make it a reality show. Do hours and hours on them and make them TV stars. And when they become TV stars, they'll become MMA stars. Look at people like the Kardashians, Kendra, the Jersey Shore gang, and other men and women on TV who are major stars with absolutely no talent, who are simply stars because they're famous for being famous. The way to make the next Brock Lesnar is to make the fighters famous first, regardless of whether or not they can fight and win. Make them good looking, give them TV personality, send them to premieres, put them on Oprah, put them in the movies, and you'll make them stars. And you will make the next UFC pay-per-view much bigger and more exciting. You can't rely on making them invincible champions. You have to make them stars first. That's why Brock Lesnar is the biggest star in the MMA world. He was a star before he got there. And that's how the MMA world can make their next star. Make them famous for being famous. Then they'll be MMA stars. This is Grandmaster Gambadella. I'll be back with a report on how Brock Lesnar wins against Shane Carwin right after the fight. See you next time.